the moment, this is it. Mm-hmm. And I don't really care if you like me or not. Mm-hmm. I like me.
So that was the voice of Setsuna, one of a dear friend of ours in our circle, and one of the interviews that we conducted earlier in the year.
I love this interview with her, and she just really highlights what it means to be a unique brand of witch that she is, as she welcomes people into our circle and into our space.
Right. And one thing that I really love talking to her is because she's younger than both of us. Mm-hmm. And so, again, it represents a slightly different generation of witchiness, wouldn't you say?
I would. And also bringing in this deep wisdom that I continue to learn from, mm-hmm. no matter the age.
Yes, exactly. This was recorded over Zoom, so there's going to be a little bit of background noise and some little glitches in there, but I hope you'll bear with us because this we get so much wisdom from these people that we're interviewing, so I hope that you get a sense of that.
We hope you enjoy. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
races,
and backgrounds.
With a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true, our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
So before we jump into the interview with Setsuna, let's hear a little bit about what's been going on with us. So what has been happening for you outside of the witchy world?
So I am excited to say that in over a year, it's taken a while, but I finally went to my first club. I know. And I thank you for reacting like that, because some people who don't know me well might not understand how important this is. Mm-hmm. But it's Pride Month right now. We're recording in Pride Month, and I went out with a few friends, and we went to Pride, which was adjusted downtown. It didn't look like Pride normally looks.
Right.
But it was, first of all, it was my first time out.
In like a number of people,
yeah,
right?
Like out. And I just kept having moments where I was just overwhelmed with gratitude to get to be in a space where people, well, first of all, where there's people, mm-hmm. but also to go out for my first time with these people who are showing up. You know, everybody is just joyful, and maybe it was more so because of COVID. I don't know, but it felt like that to me. And I kept the English major in me kept really enjoying that this was my first time out during Pride, where people are out, love it, you know. Right. And I'm like, there's like a deep poem like in this somewhere.
Yeah.
But we walked into, so we like hung outside for a while, and then there was DJs outside, and then we went inside one of the clubs on the Strip in San Antonio, which is like where like the Rainbow Crosswalk is, mm-hmm. and the gay clubs are. Or a lot of the gay clubs are. And we walked in, and my friends, like, I'm with a group of mm-hmm. friends, and they walk in, and then I just like freeze, and it's like being hit by a tidal wave of just like all these feelings. And I'm like looking at the lights and the smoke, you know, mm-hmm. that they set off so you can see the lasers more, and the music is loud, and there's young people and old people, and there's like all of this diversity and this beauty and this joy, and people are smiling and laughing, and I just start crying. And I think my friends like realized I wasn't with them, and they like came back, and I'm just like standing there in tears, and it was just tears of joy. Like, what a gift it is to get to see that again and experience that again, and to be a part of that.
And I wonder how much of that, I wouldn't say we ever took it for granted, but it was just a part of our lives, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was important to us because it was important to us, it was a part of our lives, right? Mm-hmm. And so having not had that opportunity we really appreciate it now.
Uh-huh.
And the first time out, I can imagine. Well, actually, I don't have to imagine because my check-in.
Oh, what's your check-in?
So for the first time in years, I went to a movie theater. Last Thursday, I met with a friend, and we went to lunch, and then we went to see In the Heights, which has some controversy. We can talk about that another time. But just sitting at so first of all, you choose your seats now, and I always choose the near the back in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, the theater seats, I don't know, 150 people or whatever, 200 people, and there's only 12 people there because
Uh-huh.
we're just getting out, and it's also being streamed, right?
Yeah.
But of course, it's like row H, there's 2 people in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Row I, there's 2 people in the middle. So literally, there's only 12 people, and we're all right behind each other. So all we needed is for like the person in the end to cough, and we would have all been screaming. But it was just so funny how we were thinking, well, that was something we didn't think about.
Yeah.
I had the same experience because I've been watching things, online, etc., for the past year, but sitting in the theater with the sound coming from all around you, music and people dancing, and it's a lot of people dancing together. I literally choked up. The tears didn't start flowing, but I literally choked up. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it's just, because it just reminded me of how isolated I'd been over the past year. Mm-hmm. And so, but in a good way, I mean, in a good way, just being out. So that was one thing. And then the second thing I'll just say really briefly is, for the first time in a year and a half, I sung out in public. And I sang a solo in a church nearby. The really, really sweet people, and they kind of know who I am, but they love it. They're so very, mm-hmm. very, very welcoming. So I got a chance to sing.
Was there like an occasion for the singing, or?
Funny you should ask that. No, actually, it was the end of Pride Month, and the organist wanted to have. I sang a religious version of "Somewhere Over the Rainbow."
Aww.
So it was really beautiful. It was so much fun. It was just so much fun for me to be able to sing out in public again, and just let the voice rip and all of that. So it was and warming up. All the things I hadn't done in a year. Like, okay, I have to warm up. The night before, I couldn't talk a lot. Because I didn't know what key we'd be doing it in. Uh-huh. So I didn't know how high my notes had to be, which makes a difference at my age. So it was really nice going through that again, and thinking about my body as an instrument. I hadn't done that in a year. So.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
I see such parallels in like my body and moving it in this space that feels so sacred to me, and your body as an instrument and using it in this space and in this way that's so sacred.
Right, yeah. And it's, I'd gotten out of that. I mean, we've been doing things on Zoom and stuff, but it's not the same. We're small. You're intimate. You don't have to be loud because you're right here on the microphone, mm-hmm. on your laptop or whatever. But the idea, okay, I have to fill up a space, mm-hmm. and I literally have to inhabit that, and that was nice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, what a joy.
Indeed. What a joy. How would you describe yourself and your practice?
I consider myself a witch. And if we want to get really into the nitty-gritty of things, I think that I'm a cottage witch. I'm a house witch. I am in that area.
So would you mind jumping in because I would imagine that to a number of different people, those words might mean different things. So would you tell us what that means to you, to be a cottage or a house witch?
So my foray into paganism, witchcraft, all of that started with Tumblr. I'm the first generation to really come from the Tumblr world, and for baby witches, they have little houses to find your affinity. And I think it's very quaint and cute. It's like a BuzzFeed test almost. So I really align with house witchcraft and cottage witchcraft. Now, I don't have a cottage, not yet. I'm in an apartment right now. But, house witchcraft and cottage witchcraftery really centers around the home, around the hearth, and what makes a home a home. It's not so much hedge witchcraftery, which means jumping into another plane sometimes, but it's centered around hospitality and welcoming and plants and food and the stuff that really sparks joy with me. So that is a little bit of Baby Witchcraft 101.
What is the core expression of your witchiness?
Oh, this one leads right into the other question that was just answered. It's definitely centered in my home, and not in necessarily the 800 square feet that I dance and sing to while I'm making pork chops. It's the intangible of it. My home has become sort of a second piece of me, in that it's a constant reminder of humility and humbleness and hospitality, and it's become a sacred spot, despite the fact that somebody can have an argument not 500 feet away from me in a very unsacred way. But I try and make it a place of comfort and of luxury and creativity, and freedom and openness. And it rejuvenates me in a way that no other place does. And that's really where my magic is centered. One day I won't be in an 800 square foot apartment, and it will move with me. But it centers me. It centers my magic.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what your vision is. Where do you see yourself not in your 800 square foot apartment?
I have Pinterest boards upon Pinterest boards. This is what I dream about when I go to bed. I would love a little cottage. I just need a bedroom for me and a bedroom for the dogs. They have to have their own room, of course. And, big open kitchen, and somewhere that I can bring a whole lot of people and just celebrate with. Have them over for Friday night. We survived another week, and a lovely garden. I don't need much. I just need a little bit of space for myself, and I cannot wait to get there.
That's great. Thank you so much. So, thinking about yourself, how did you know, and maybe when did you know that you were a witch? Sorry.
I'm still waiting. I would love to be able to shoot fire out of my hands. I'm still waiting for that. I find myself coming up against, but are you a witch? That little voice inside my head that makes me doubt, what are you? And if anybody came up to me, say Leilani came up to me and she said, I don't know if I am or not, I would tell her, I would look her in the eye and I would tell her, you are what you say you are. But I can't seem to show myself that same compassion. And that little nagging voice keeps telling me, are you? But then there are days that I can just feel energy flooding around me, that I can feel the energy in the ground I'm standing on and the air around me and the city that I'm in. I can just feel it. And I'll be in a rush and all of the lights will be green, or somebody will feel off to me and I'll be able to identify that and help them. And that other voice comes in and says, well, perhaps you do have it, sweetheart. Perhaps you are. And so those voices are constantly at battle. And I would love for an owl to come up to me right now with a letter telling me definitively, you are. But until then, I guess I just have to deal with the constant battle and be assured in myself that I am what I say I am.
I'd just like to add to that it's just so enlightening to hear you say, this is one of the reasons I love doing these, I love doing these interviews. It's so enlightening hearing you say that about yourself, because if someone had asked me, I wouldn't have said, oh no, she has no doubts. Because I so love sitting in your energy. You know, when we're in the kitchen or something like that, I just so love, being like kind of touching the edges of your magic when you're sharing. And so, I appreciate your opening up and sharing that information with us, because that's something I would never have guessed. So thank you.
And I think that, when I was younger and I wasn't sure at all, when I didn't have the confidence to say, this is who I am, whether I like it or not, I am proceeding in this fashion. I would have loved to hear somebody be a little bit conflicted about it, to be a little bit like, I can't actually turn off a candle by looking at it. I'm sorry. I would have loved to hear that. I would have loved to have somebody say, it's okay. It's okay to doubt yourself at times. That's normal. That's part of the process. What matters is where you go from there.
Do you have any sort of memories or moments whenever you started to wonder or started to notice that maybe something was different, or that you functioned differently in a spiritual space, or anything like that growing up?
Growing up, I loved the ritual aspect of Catholicism. That was a whole lot of fun. Those words have never been spoken together.
I don't know that Catholicism fun.
But it was really my interactions with people that made me kind of wonder. I don't think that everyone else is seeing this the way that I'm seeing this. And the interactions that I would have, I would just have these gut feelings when I was speaking to people. Oh, and when I was in their presence, I couldn't understand it. And at that point, I couldn't communicate it either. I didn't know that's not how everybody else made decisions about what they were going to wear or how they interacted with people. And so that was the first piece of it that I started noticing. Maybe something's a little bit different. But I was really late to the game in that perception. I was in college, and I'm like, you don't think that she's sad? You don't see that at all? No? Okay. I was late to that game. I thought that everybody in the world thought exactly how I thought, and apparently not.
So, it sounds as if that you had this sense of things that other people didn't have, and that was that was your magic giving you insight into the world around you. I was wondering if you could say if other negotiations that you might make between your witchy life and your mundane life.
Oh man. Trying to negotiate my witchy life and my mundane life it feels like an early 2000s sitcom. I work in academia. I work at a college here in San Antonio, and I'm slightly ambitious. But at the same time, I don't want to be the token witch, the token person that's pulled on, and I never want my further progression in my career to be in doubt because of this perceived notion of tokenism. Like, oh, they only gave her the promotion because they needed a little bit more religious diversity. And so, and more than just my career aspirations, I like how my career is now. I like not having people, make the sign of the cross when they walk by my cubicle. I like that people don't consult me about the moon every month. I appreciate that. I like flying right under the radar. And so that in itself is tricky, logistically speaking. But more so, I think the hardest negotiation that I have between witchy and mundane is the fact that, well, witchy folk seem to understand dichotomy very well. Prime example is the goddess Freya. She's the goddess of love, and she's the goddess of war, and witchy people are down with that. Mundane people, perhaps not. And so they can't really seem to put me in the proper box. They know I bake, they know I sew, they know I do these domestic things, and then they also know that I do jujitsu, and I, say some strange, outlandish things, like, we have to take care of the trees, and paper consumption is way high, and so they can't really rectify that. And I think that when I'm in more mundane spaces, like my life, my work life, and places like that, I have to tone it down a little bit. I have to take the dichotomy down a couple of places. But when I'm in spaces with more like-minded people, I can let my freak flag fly a little bit more, and know that they'll accept that and run with it, just like I would.
I love that.
Could you tell us more about your personal practice and how you express your witchiness?
Oh, here's another thing that I wish that somebody had told me in my Tumblr days, is that I don't do a ritual every month. I don't know it's a full moon. I don't know if it's a new moon. I don't. There's been something charging on my windowsill since I moved in. It's gnarly. I don't think I could call the directions in any sane order. I don't even know which way is north. Needless to say, I'm not a ritualistic witch. That's not my genre. My witchiness, my practice seems to be infusing the witchy and the mundane, in going through my day and reminding myself about the ritual of each day. It's not in a new moon ritual. It's not in ritualized cleaning. It's in ritualized pouring of the coffee. It is in my interactions with people and trying to see the light and the goodness of all of the universe in them when they cut me off on the freeway. It is trying to fuse them in this beautiful arc of, I do this every day, and that means sacred. And that is something that I wish that somebody had told me. It's okay if your altar is covered in dust. But there's so much more to it, than putting up an altar. If that's your jam, that is your jam. That doesn't seem to be mine. I feel quite fraudulent, in that way. But I know that my coffee is hands down better than any other Keurig coffee, because of the love and the magic that I put into it.
So it sounds to me like, I think we asked earlier about negotiating it. It sounds as if it's that you have a great deal of integration, actually, in your between your witchy and your mundane lives. Would you? Am I thinking of that properly?
I would agree with that. I try and get them very, very close, and I will never be able to live on Avalon Island, running around in buckskin. It's not going to happen. But I want to get both worlds as close as I can. And that means picking people who are like-minded to share my spaces, to be as out as it is safe to be. That means, that means kind of erasing the line between witchy and mundane, as much as my courage allows me to. I would like it one day to be so that my personality is as integrated as possible, that you can't remove me from my faith in the way that I see very inspirational people in that you couldn't possibly pull them apart, their personality and their faith. That's fascinating to me. That's divine to me. And I would love to one day in 75, 100 years from now, be that person.
If you were feeling your witchiness really, really to your heart one day, and it was just really, jiving with you, and as much as you feel comfortable with sharing, how would like the coffee ritual look to you? How would you experience it?
So I love the morning. I'm a morning person, and I can feel it in the morning. And so the coffee ritual looks a lot like. Now I'm not making my own fire to boil my own water that I picked up from a spring on midsummer's morning. I'm not doing that. But I pour the water, and I'm thinking about how this water has been here, and this water will be here after I'm gone, that this will fuel my descendants, and it fueled my ancestors, and all of these molecules are the same, and they will always be the same, no matter how far we break them down and smash them together. And as the water boils, it's an active application of patience. By the time I'm preparing coffee, I want to get out, I want to go, I want to do things. And this makes me sit and wait, it makes me grateful to have this moment. Particularly this week, it makes me very grateful for electricity after having lost it. Grinding the coffee beans is not easy. I don't know if it's because of my lasagna arms, but it's something to stimulate the blood, and it's so worth it. It's my least favorite chore. But I find myself, I've got the grater to my chest going around, and I like very fine grain. So I gotta go around a lot of times. I find myself thinking about my family and the people that I'm going to talk to today. I don't know why I think about them when I'm grinding coffee, but I do, and I hope they're having a good morning, and I send that energy out. I'm a drip coffee person, and so I'll pour the water over, and that smell just brings me back into my body. I love not being in my body. If I could forego a body, I would. But having that moment of being in my body is nice. That smell, that first hit of coffee in the morning, boy. And I have to wait. It is in a world that I can have everything I want whenever I want, within reason. I have to wait for my first cup of coffee, and I think that sets me up really well for the rest of the day. And so again, you don't see a whole lot of now I'm going to charge the water, and it's been left out overnight in the full moon. But it's making me aware of the things that are around me, and the body that I'm in, and how grateful I am, for all of the things that made this single cup of coffee, possible for me. I wish that I had that sort of dedication for all of my meals and all of my waking moments of all of my day. Again, maybe when I'm 75.
Yeah. I'd like you to think about, why do you think you're here? What's your purpose? What's your charge? What's your mission? And then maybe could you speak to how your witchiness may intersect with that, or support that, or is antagonistic to that, or
Man, what are you here for? Pop that into a podcast.
I know. This is we ask the hard questions.
I feel like I'm on 60 Minutes, 60 Seconds. I think that my mission here for this lifetime is to desensitize people, the people around me, to different ideas and different people, and different worldviews without being confrontational about it. I see a real need for that. In that, a lot of times when I get on the Facebook comment section, I want to go. I want to wrestle folk. And I don't necessarily want to lead in a way that people want to follow me. I'm very aggressive, and I don't want to take another perspective. But I think that that's not my journey. What I want to do is I want people to see me, to know, oh, she's a witch. She wasn't that bad. She's actually not that weird. She didn't want to eat my baby at all. And so the next time that they see a witch with a pentacle, they'll think of me and say, well, she wasn't that bad. Maybe this one isn't either. And I want to do that for all of the different aspects and facets of me. So I want, somebody to see a Latina and think of me, and well, she wasn't at all what Fox News had me thinking. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to be that open door. I'd like to be the gateway drug.
I just so appreciate, just that idea of you being, like, your mission is you being you. I mean, I love that. I mean, I think if I could be so bold as to kind of put my interpretation on it, but I think that's wonderful. And I just see I see so much how you infuse, like, you're practicing that.
And that's exactly it. I think my mission in this life is just to be me, and to make it not scary for other people to experience that with me.
My experience is I feel pretty liberated when I'm around you because of your dedication to you being you. First of all, I tend to think the things you do are really cool, because they're so different from the way I experience the world. But I see you pouring coffee or tea and I'm like, damn, that's so cool. When me pouring tea is like, do, you pouring tea in my experience is like, da-da, and when I witness that, it liberates me of what is my tea pouring? How can I show up in that way and ta-da, myself?
And I'd like to add, I mean, if you don't mind, that while you're saying that you're kind of showing people what the various facets of you could be, and letting them experience, I think for people who have similar facets, it's wonderful to have permission, and modeling that can give someone permission to let their freak flag fly. I can never get that all out, but so I think that's a wonderful model that you can become, and you are, in so many different ways. Yay.
And I agree. And no facet has to look exactly like me. I want to create an open space in which, if your thing is a ritualized calling of the elements, go there. I want to support you, and the best way that I can do that is not showing you how to do that. Do not come to me to call water. Don't. The best way that I can support anyone doing anything is to let them do that. And I do that by modeling what I know. And so it's an interesting letting go and letting them do the thing while I do my thing, and letting them know, go for it. Raise the flag. You will not be judged here.
Is there anything else that maybe we haven't asked about that you think would be interesting or fun or feel called to share?
No. I suspect that I'm one of the last interviews. And so I wish that you had asked about books, or what are you watching? What are you consuming? What media are you consuming right now?
What media are you consuming right now? What books or other media are you consuming? I'm curious.
Nothing right now. Lots of Animal Crossing. Is that a maybe? You know, and looking back on that answer, that's such a Hearth Witch thing to say. Of course I would say that. Animal Crossing.
The grimoire of Animal Crossing.
How to identify a cottage witch in 3 steps or less.
Like, aren't you? And you can actually buy a cottage, I think, in Animal.
Do you have a cottage at Animal Crossing?
Yes!
Oh my gosh!
I run around and I make my little cottage pretty. And it's a cottage away from a cottage.
Oh, cool. That is so cool.
Holy sacred Animal Crossing.
I love it. Well, you know, Animal Crossing as a microcosm and like your vision board, right? So you can use that like your Pinterest boards. You can use that to kind of like create and advance the space. So when you find it in the mundane world, it's like done.
Alright. There's some ritualistic powers of Animal Crossing. There's magical powers in Animal Crossing. I will vouch for that.
I'm super curious about you being in partnership with somebody and how that's working with a difference of faith practices and just like getting to know each other and how you're like integrating that.
This is another thing that I wish somebody had told me in my Tumblr days, is that it doesn't always have to perfectly align. However, the morals, the intention behind it, should align with a good partnership. If you're too far from your own core beliefs, I don't think a partnership would work well. However, I'm very lucky in that while we don't practice in the same way, we are both entirely curious about how the other perceives the world and interacts with it. And so it's been a huge area to grow with, and it's been a whole lot of fun. I enjoy myself greatly, and hopefully, it's mutual. It's really interesting coming to a relationship, knowing who I am. I think I joke that I should really send people waivers and forms to fill out, because I want them to know up front, within the guidelines of safety, that this is who I am. If you wish to come in, then come in with full disclosure. Your coffee is going to taste a little weird. That's because I put turmeric in it, but that's all right. It's good for you. And it's a lot of fun to see another perspective closely. I'm enjoying myself. Again, with the full disclosure, I am who I am, and I will grow into who I will be. But for the moment, this is it. Mm-hmm. And I don't really care if you like me or not. Mm-hmm. I like me.
Most important, that's a great ending. Thank you. I feel that that's going to be like the closing. What do you think? Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. And while you're at it, go ahead and put that on my tombstone as well.
It can be like your new, get some t-shirts made.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ooh, and then I'd like on the back, #BadWitchClub.
Oh yeah, well, there's so much that could be said with that.
So, Witchy Wit asked me to come up with a poem that I would like to read at the end of the interview like they do. And this is the first one that popped into my mind. Probably because I'm thinking about all of the facets of grief and what that looks like for me. I've been relatively safe this year, but I think I'm still grieving a lot of what I thought would happen in 2020 and 2021. I think I'm still grieving a lot of different versions that I thought I was going to become. I think I'm grieving the people around me and the ways of interaction that I lost. And so this one gives me a little bit of hope. This is the book that my mother read at her grandmother's funeral, and that I'm going to read at my grandmother's funeral. That might make it seem sad, but I think that loss is a part of life, that everyone will have that knock on their door. But, like this poem kind of reminds us all, that joy will too. So this is To Everything There Is a Season by Leo and Diane Dillon, based off of verses from Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. One generation passes away, and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Witchy Wit Podcast.
Email us at witchywit123@gmail.com. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get exclusive content and support us on Patreon.
Stay witchy, y'all.